I'll be like, look, Abby, sweetheart, you have to understand, this is for the business. I have to go. I have to. We've got a lot to cover today on Paul N Saul. I am Christopher Saul, and
I'm Paul.
He's Paul. He's Paul Schoberg. And on the show today, city commissioner gets a job replacing a former city commissioner who resigned for medical reasons, but the vote technically wasn't public, and we had to get a records request involved in order to figure out how it all happened. We'll talk a little bit about that. A playoff shakeup is coming. We talk about it extensively on the Emerald Coast Sports Show, but we're going to talk about it a little bit here as well. There's a big change coming to high school football playoffs in 2020. You're not going to want to miss. Firehouse on the Fed's dime. Niceville wants a new fire station, and it looks like there's a good chance the Pentagon could pick up the tab. Finally, a false alarm in Niceville. There was an attempted abduction report last week, and it turned out to be not totally the truth. Welcome to Paul N Saul, your local news update on video. And Paul, for the people that are listening today and cannot see your beautiful face, you have a hat on, as always. And today's sponsor for the show is?
Yeah, my friend Jill and Jay McAdams. They run a family-owned company here out of Shalimar, and they definitely help out the Niceville area. It's called One Day Closets and Doors. I might have it back.
One day.
Yeah, One Day Doors and Closets of Northwest Florida. So if you have any closet or door needs, I would encourage you to Google them and put them to work. They'll show up at your house. They'll do it fast and quick, and they'll make sure it looks nice when it's done and all cleaned up.
And if you tell them that we sent you right now, the special offer is that I promise I will never sing that One Day song again on this show. You're very welcome. So with that, Paul, let's get into our first story. Little something going down in Valp. You want to get us started?
Yeah, exactly. You've been poking around, Valp City Hall lately, and there's been quite a bit of drama. They appointed a new city commissioner to fill the seat that Ed Crosby resigned, and they may have not done it the right way.
So yeah, there's been a little bit of I want to say like a quiet drama thing with the emphasis on the quiet. Basically, Valparaiso appointed a new city commissioner and they had a vote, but they had a secret ballot that they didn't reveal until we put in a records request to see those secret ballots. So the way it all works is they can have a secret-ish ballot, but the ballots that they use have to be made public afterward to kind of like narrow stuff down. But eventually they have to have an official vote in public of everybody. And this thing didn't go exactly to plan. And our colleague, Colin Bester, helped me with this story. He did a lot of the background research, looked into everything. I guess it was a collaborative one. I think we put his byline on this story on midbaynews.com if you want all the nitty gritty little details. But the fact is that this did happen. And it also, something similar happened a couple of years ago with the appointment of city manager David Deitch in Niceville. We had to go ahead and appoint, or no, I think it was the city council appointment. My mistake. It was the city council appointment that brought in Doug Stauffer. We eventually went up and requested all of the secret ballots to figure out who voted for whom. It was a to-do, but eventually we got the ballots and we published like, hey, this is how many people got this many votes. But again, a sunshine violation technically, and that's something that's pretty serious, especially here in Florida where we take open government pretty seriously.
Yeah, so under the Florida Sunshine Law, all votes by commissions or boards are supposed to be done openly, and you're supposed to know exactly who voted for what immediately, and it's not something that you should have to go FOIA request or find out later. So, I think there were 3 people that were in the running for this, and the vote
that's what's interesting as well.
Yeah, give us the details on that.
So there were 3 people that put their names in the hat to be the next Valparaiso city commissioner. And initially on their first vote, they voted for one person, Robles, to become the next city commissioner. But then they took another vote. It was kind of nebulous. But the only person that actually physically showed up to the city commission meeting, I guess 90% of everything is just showing up, was Bryan Griffin. And then after everything was said and done, the dust was settled, Griffin was the one that they picked to be on the commission. He is the one who's been sworn in and is now the sitting city commissioner of the city of Valparaiso.
So do you think there's any risk at all at this being invalidated, or it's just going to kind of be like, small city business, like brush it under the...
I mean, in my experience, nothing has happened, but that does not mean that something could not happen. I mean, this is a straight up technical violation. So could the state come down on Valparaiso and bring the hammer with them? They could, but will that happen? I find it unlikely, and that's kind of frustrating as somebody that's like a big open government guy. But here we are, right? It's one of those things where if enough people make enough of a noise about it, maybe something will get done at the state level because that's who holds the city charter. In order to make that complaint, it would have to go up to the state, and the state would have to investigate it.
Yep. Well, I don't think, I agree with you. I don't think there's going to be much to do with this. I think it's probably just going to move forward as is. All right, let's get into some Friday Night Lights talk. Football season's not too far away, and we got some playoff implications. So, Saul, you've been digging into some of the rule changes with the FHSAA. How does high school football playoffs look going forward in the state of Florida?
I would love to tell you that I did all this work, but I didn't. Garrett Gesh, our sports guy for this summer, and hopefully longer, if I can get him to stick around, is the man behind all the research. He went and actually spoke with the FHSAA about high school football playoffs this year. High school football playoffs are a totally different animal than the rest of the school sports playoffs, just because they have so much more machinery and gearworks and technicalities and everything. But the thing you need to know for this year, 2025, and we'll get to 26 in a minute because it's such a big deal. But 2025, the way it's all working is there's kind of 3 geographic classifications. So you have your classification, your size, which is the only non-geographic one. And then you have your region, which is very, very big and includes like, I want to say it's like 32 teams, but I could be wrong. I don't want to go off the top of my head. And then you have your district, which has 4 teams. And in football, that's the only sport in the FHSAA where you have to play every single team in your region. So for Niceville, for example, it's Niceville, Milton, Gulf Breeze, and Mosley, which is out of Lynn Haven or Panama City. The winner or the team that does the best in all of those games, so the tiebreaker goes to the team that beat the other team, and the tiebreaker is the team that gets an automatic bid to the playoffs. All right. Now, that still leaves 4 extra slots in a region that are filled by math. And math is not my forte, but the basic idea is that there's a big algorithm that is similar to the one that they use on maxpreps.com, if you're familiar with that.
Here's where Max Preps comes in, right? The rankings in Max Prep.
Sort of, kind of. So they use a lot of the same data with one big exception, and that's that they take out the predictive ratings that Max Preps does include in their rankings, and just says like, okay, up to this point, how good have you been? So nothing in the future, gets counted toward or against the teams. And so the next 4 teams in a region are going to get those playoff bids. So in theory, right, you could have Niceville, Walton, Gulf Breeze, and Mosley make a playoffs if the 3 teams that didn't win the district are so dominant, they beat everybody by like 80 points, that the math basically moves them into those playoff spots. Now, that's very unlikely, but under this system, it's possible and it can happen. And the other thing that you need to note about for 2025 specifically is that all district winners get to play home field advantage first game. And then after that, it's, higher seed. But the gentleman from the FHSAA that Gary talked to said that there have been years where an 8 seed will host a 1 seed because the 8 seed won its region and the 1 seed didn't. And so it's utter chaos. It's kind of crazy. There's a lot of math. And as a liberal arts major, I'm terrified of math. And so it's kind of like black magic to me.
Yeah. So what do you so 2025, those are the set of rules that you just explained, but 2026 is going to be completely different. Is it better? Is it worse? What do you think?
Okay, so I love it and I hate it. So 2026, just to give you an idea, they are going to take a new classification almost. So at the end of the year, there are the rural division, for lack of a better term, and then you have 1 through 7A, right? Those are all the spots. But what's going to happen next year is the FHSAA is going to take the top 8 teams based on that ranking formula I told you about for 2025, and they're going to take the top 8 teams and they're going to put them in an open division. So the best 8 teams in high school football in Florida will all play in a single elimination tournament to be like the one team to rule them all. And
that's crazy.
So this is the craziest part, because I went and looked at the Max Preps rankings, and let's see if I can pull them up right now while I'm thinking about it.
So while you're doing that, are they going to do the normal 2025 playoffs, and then this is just after that?
Everybody else that's not in the top 8 gets left. So you could be, let's say that they pick let's say 7A has 8 teams that are ranked the best based on all this math that they do, right? You could be team number 9 and you could be the 7A state champion because all the other teams win up. It's kind of a fascinating little way to do this. And let's see. And I think I put it actually in my saved photos. You would think that it'd all be like 7A teams, maybe a couple 6A teams and like a 5A team or something like that.
Sure.
That would actually make these because they're the biggest, right? And you'd be mostly right, but not all the way right. So you have teams like IMG Academy that are going to be, very big and powerful because they have all these amazing players that come to them that are not necessarily the biggest. You have like Northwestern in Miami that's a very big school population wise, but there are some like really small schools in here as well. So Chaminade Madonna, for example, is a 2A team and it was ranked number 6 on Max Prep's final rankings. So it would make the playoffs, even though it's a 2A team, right? St. Thomas Aquinas, that's 5A, just like Niceville, is number 3 in the state. West Boca Raton, Cardinal Mooney's a small Catholic school. West Boca Raton, I think First Academy is a charter school. And then American Heritage is another huge public school out of Plantation. So there are big and small teams that would make this tournament and also kind of make it more winnable for the other teams that are like feel stacked with kids that are like not playing for Miami and Florida next year.
Listen, I kind of like this. I think it's cool. The one thing I do worry about is maybe it's setting the stage for in the future, like we're just going to have a bracket for the whole state of Florida. And, you're going to have to work your way through the bracket to win the whole thing.
Work your way. I think you mean pay kids to play for your football team.
Sure. What? Yeah.
So this would be the one football team to rule them all because, I mean, frankly, the FHSAA's meal ticket is high school football, right? I mean, sure, basketball and baseball are important and, there are other sports that matter, but like at the end of the day, like the FHSAA is like, that's what people care about, right? It's the South. It's, they've got very competitive teams. There's a lot of Division I talent that is playing here. I mean, that's the reason IMG has a school here. So for them, I mean, this is a huge deal. And this is part of keeping people interested in what's happening at the high school level, especially when you have, I mean, like, for example, in single A, right? Bowles, the Bowles School is a private school just outside of Jacksonville. And they've won, I think, like, they have the most state titles of anybody. They have like 13, right? But like, when Bowles wins every year, it's kind of like watching the Patriots or Alabama win every year. You kind of like, who cares, right? Of course they won, right? And
yeah, they always seem to have a Division I QB and a couple of other Division I players hanging around.
So not super exciting, but if Chaminade's playing St. Thomas Aquinas, like I'm watching that football game.
I really think this is going to change how coaches schedule games. These rankings matter, the whole thing. I don't know. It's going to be super interesting to watch in 25 and 26.
I am excited because, like, for example, Niceville, I would say Niceville's a lot like Notre Dame, and I'm sure most high schools are like this, where they have like 7 games that they play every year, no matter what. But that leaves, 3 games that are open for really exciting matchups. So I remember 3 or 4 years ago, North Miami Beach came up here, and of course, I mean, they got absolutely trounced. North Miami Beach did. But wouldn't it be cool to have a Chaminade or another South Sumter come through and have like a really amazing, early September game in Niceville, or to go on the road to, I don't want to say Miami because I don't want to go, but you know what? What if we played Key West? I'd watch that. That'd be fun, right? Like, are we going to go to Key West?
Just cool. Write off the whole trip.
Just right. Yeah, no, because I'll be like, look, Abby, sweetheart, you have to understand, this is for the business. I have to go. I have to. It works. It'll happen. And that's what I'm excited about. Speaking of things that I want to have happen, selfishly, as an East Niceville area resident in the city manager David Deitch talked about the potential for getting a second fire station here in the city of Niceville and having it paid for by the federal government. Tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this last week as well, but the federal grant would give us millions, potentially $4.2 million to build a new fire station, firehouse in Deer Moss Creek.
Yeah. And it'd be very exciting because it'd increase fire safety. And based off of some of the stories that I'm working on right now, we might have a soon to be merged fire department because other places are not excelling in the management area when it comes to fire control.
That is a very nice way to say that, Christopher. Very diplomatic of you.
That is a tease. And by the end of this week, I hope to have a story out that kind of exemplifies the situation in some of the other areas, one area in particular. And so we'll have that coming up. But speaking of things that are not true reports, but are in fact false reports, we had a whole blow up on social media this week after a kid reported to police that he was allegedly somebody attempted to kidnap him. Turns out false alarm, but don't you worry because Niceville blew that puppy up in terms of engagement and viewership. Everybody was worried about this situation.
Yeah, it was it was crazy. Like when Niceville Police Department put out a letter, it was like fairly descriptive about the situation and what happened, warning
It's like
everyone.
blue van, this street, this time. I was like,
Yeah,
oof.
it was really, really, really heavy on the details. And so people were, especially in the mom community online, like everybody was like crazy concerned, as they should be, had it turned out to be a
Mhm,
real scenario. And Niceville Police Department asked for additional help. Do you have cameras? Do you live in this area? We would like to see if we can track this guy down. And
mhm.
I think through that process, they discovered that the whole thing was fake.
Yeah. So, kind of frustrating from my end because, when we report stuff like that, we people always give us a hard time for like using like alleged and police say, but like this is one of the times I'm really glad that I said police say because it turned out not to be true. And the police are the investigators and we're the reporters. And so it's one of those things that also kind of gave me pause because you talked about like the moms, but like I remember Cecilia, my daughter wanted to go play outside, and I was like, well, I can't be like watching her the whole time. I had some stuff I had to do inside over the weekend, or maybe it was before that because I think it got cleared up on Friday, and it gave me pause. And I know the statistics that it's incredibly unlikely that my kid's going to be kidnapped from my front lawn, but it still made me nervous.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, but the great thing about Niceville, right, is that we have an incredibly safe community. We're the type of place where you can let your kid get on their bike and go up to the new Wawa when it's open,
Wait, Vay.
and and get themselves a Slurpee or something delicious from the local convenience store. And so I don't know. I would encourage parents not to be overly concerned. The odds are fairly low for child abductions, more so than any other time in history, just with the existence of cameras everywhere. People are not doing that as often as they did back in the day. And we want a community where our kids can ride bikes and go to friends' house and not be overly concerned. So let's have that kind of community and not be too scared.
And speaking of community, we are here, of course, thanks to your generous donations. So always keep us in your thoughts as you're thinking about places to spend your money. And also, if that's not really in the cards for you, we would love for you to like and subscribe to our show to make sure that you get the latest from Paul and Saul. Hit the bell button as well. That lets you know every time that we release something that it's coming up, and you can get the latest and the greatest, have all the knowledge, and tell your friends about it as well. And thanks to the donors for this week, Brandy, Kara, Anonymous, Ed, and Penny are this week's donors. And of course, we really appreciate you because you keep local journalism going. So a look ahead to the stories that we're covering this week. We have all manner of city council and county commission meetings this week. Peak among them, it's Walton County again. And that's because, as you might have remembered, they recently fired their county administrator. And now, apparently, according to my dad, who is in the county commission meeting as we record this right now, they're discussing some sort of, I guess, rider or addition that somehow got finagled into his contract that says that he gets 20 weeks of severance pay if he gets fired. That would work out to about $90,000. So super fun.
This is so interesting. If that was in his employment agreement, you would think we would have heard about it sooner. Sort of smells like maybe there's like a settling between the two behind the scenes that allow for this to happen, maybe in exchange for no further action or litigation. I have no idea.
It is wild, but it's not the only wild and crazy thing that's going on the Walton County Commission agenda right this moment. The other one, of course, is a anonymous performance review and evaluation survey of all 5 commissioners. So apparently over in Walton County, they let the staff do a performance review of the commissioners, and I am really excited to see if they let us have the data on that. Can you
You're
imagine?
you're already firing up the FOIA request right now for that information.
It's done, Paul. It's done. I'm just sitting here and waiting for it because the nice thing about a dumpster fire is that you don't have to rekindle it. It just continues. It just continues.
It's like your official mascot for Walton County.
I mean, I'm not saying that's why I put it there, but anyway.
Maybe the city of Valparaiso too.
What I feel like one's smoldering because it's pretty much on the way out, and the other one has some life to it. That's semantics. Anyway, the school board also meets today as we film to talk about their upcoming yearly budget. We have our reporter Colin Bester, who is on the show over there, checking out to see what we're going to be spending on money on in the Okaloosa County School District this year. They've still got half-cent sales tax. They've still got property tax stuff to go through, and what that means. They have a new K-8 school going up in Crestview, and I'm excited to see what that budget holds for us.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like we're going to have a banger of a show next week. So everyone stay tuned.
It sure does. And finally, Emerald Coast Blue Martin Classic is this week. So if you love fishing, this is your week. Anyway, we do have an interview coming up after a quick little musical break to just break stuff up for you. Speaking with Jazz Genazzo, he is a former county commissioner over here in Okaloosa County who now lives in Walton County. So he has kind of a unique perspective on what's going on in Walton County. And we'll talk to him after the break. Is Jazz Genazzo, you've had a long and storied history here in Okaloosa County as a former county commissioner in Okaloosa County. Now you live in Walton County, so you kind of straddle the line of the entire Emerald Coast. And it's a great thing to have you on today because we could talk a little bit about all the Walton and Okaloosa County politicking that we see, as well as your new initiative around clean water. So, sir, if you would kind of just introduce yourself and tell the people who is Jazz Genazzo.
All right. Jazz by most of the folks. We got to Okaloosa County in 93. And I was there until 2010. I left to go to Washington, D.C. with a company, and then Dayton, Ohio, where I am now, actually working today. And then came back to Northwest Florida in 2018. So I was 93 to 2010 and 2018 till today, living down in Northwest Florida. First time I lived over in Shalimar and then Fort Walton over by the golf course. And when we came back, we moved out to Freeport and Hammock Bay. Yeah, so that's kind of the where of it, and probably my thickest, most involved time with the county. I retired from the Air Force in 2000, basically December of 2000, but got involved with Okaloosa County politics in 2005 and realized that the county commission had a lot to say on what happens, and so I ran for the county commission and won. And spent 4 years on the county commission. So
you served as a commissioner for 4 years, and you've gotten back here now. You're in Freeport, but watching local politics right now, what are some of the patterns or issues that you're noticing that are most important to you?
You know, one of the things that I learned from my time in Okaloosa politics is the value of highly qualified county staff. Okaloosa County was very fortunate to have a terrific county administrator, Jim Curry at the time, and we had a lot of department heads who were experienced and trained, and they knew their jobs, and that really helped things work when we weren't quite having the vector that we needed or the heading that we needed on some of the development decisions. You could always count on the staff to give us really good information and do the research, and particularly the planning that we continue to evolve. And if you look at Okaloosa now, they've benefited greatly in the last, it's been 15 years. A lot of the plans that were put in place in that middle of the 2000s, 2010 timeframe continue today with some of the projects they have that have come into fruition.
So now,
yeah, so that's the key, is having a commission that can give direction and kind of listen to the people and see where the pressure points are, and then having a county staff that can work with the commissioners and kind of get to where they want to go.
So that's over in Okaloosa County. And right now in Walton County, we're seeing a little bit of a different situation. We've had multiple county administrators in the last 4 or 5 years. What's your read on that as a former elected official and somebody that currently lives in Walton County?
Well, that's the first thing that really jumped out at me, because when we moved back, we came back to Walton County. I've been here since 2018. Once you're in politics, you never really keep your eyes off of it. You have to kind of keep an eye on it. You're interested in it. You know how it works. And that was one of the things I realized at Walton County. They went, I think they're on since I've been here, maybe fourth county administrator. I can't lost track of the interims and the ones they had. And that rolls through the whole staff. It does, it affects how things go. And yeah, I think the other thing in Walton County, you had the base in Okaloosa County, the Eglin, kind of as a unifying factor, because you had the south end and the beaches and, the Destin and Fort Walton, that area. And then you had the north end with Crestview and up in the Baker area and the agricultural region. But you had that base in the middle. And 80% of Eglin's base is in Okaloosa County. You have a little bit in Santa Rosa, you have some in Walton. The base was really kind of that central focus. I won't say it's a unifier completely, but certainly a focal point. Walton County doesn't really have that. You don't have anything between the water and the Alabama line except, Freeport, DeFuniak, and our agricultural area. So sometimes I think the focus is not there. Having a county administrator who's highly talented and skilled and trained and has done it before and knows how to lead the staff makes a big difference. And clearly our county commission just let go the most recent administrator. And that makes it hard. It makes it very hard. If you're a commissioner, you'd want to have goals and objectives. Obviously, looking out for your district, but you also want to look out for the county. And you go to your administrator, you go with the county staff and say, what can I do to get this done, to get that done? When you have this much churn and this much, it's churn. I mean, it's a little bit of, I don't know what else to call it. It hurts your ability to plan and be seen as a cohesive organization and a county government that people feel like they can go to. And right now, it's a little chaotic.
So when you have churns like that, and when you have just, I guess, tumult, for lack of a better term, in a county administration and all these county offices, what does this mean long term for the people at home? Why should people in Walton County care whether or not the dumpster fire continues in DeFuniak Springs for the county?
Well, it takes time. Things to make projects takes time. So if you make bad decisions or short-sighted decisions or decisions that aren't all the way thought out now, that's going to roll through 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, 10 years from now. I mean, you can't get away from it. The planning takes this, municipal planning, the county planning takes time to fund it, to plan it, to do all the things that have to happen. So, there's going to be you're going to be less quality than perhaps we should be or could be and really deserve to be.
What's the way back? How do you fix something like this?
It's not hard. You got to put quality people in place. The county commission, under the leadership of a good county administrator, can work on the strategic plan. They can say, what's our focus? What's the priorities? What are the priorities for the county? Where do we put our money? Walton County is growing terrifically in our population, estimates anywhere from 40 or 30 to 60% growth in the next 15 years, 10 to 15 years, with the median being about 47%, I think, from the last report. So where do you want to be? How are you going to spend that money? How are you going to account for it? How are you going to make it a place that is a place that people want to have the house, want to have the home, want to raise their kids, want to send them to school, want to start their business to support all the people that live here and, provide the jobs and things like that. And there's no lack of trying. I don't think all the commissioners know that's kind of one of the charter. But it takes a lot of work, and it takes workshops, and it takes, like I said, kind of a strategic plan. And then you got to have some discipline to have the pieces of that plan fall into place and not change it. We get distracted. We have a lot of distractions here. And that's going to happen while you're trying to march ahead on this plan. You're going to have things come up like storms, hurricanes, beach renourishment, which is always problematic for all the different issues that come up with it. Roads, infrastructure, how you fund it, where the infrastructure investments go, how the growth is allowed to happen, where it should happen, where it doesn't happen as well as it should. You have a canvas that we're painting right now, and once you fill up that canvas, it's very hard to change that photograph to the Mona Lisa, right?
So how do you recruit somebody? The way I'm looking at this, just from the outside in, is that there have been 40 county administrators in however many years, in the last 5 or 6 years. So how do you find a quality person that wants to come in here and do this? I mean, what is the recipe that you would recommend to make a quality person come here?
There's several ways. I mean, Okaloosa had a succession plan. They, when Mr. Curry was getting ready to wind down. They were looking at their internal staff, but they brought some key staff people in from the cities, some of the director of planning or director of roads or public works, things like that, people that have the experience in these various skill sets. And then maybe you grow it. You could bring somebody in from another county who's been very successful or who's been part of a successful county, has a lot of good best practices under their belt. So those kind of things are all possible, but there's no right answer. But you've got to have someone who's in charge. You have someone with some vision. You have to have someone who can work with 5 different commissioners and mold this into a vision and what's workable and what can get done. It's not as simple. This is not, let's go out to Indeed.com or Monster.jobs and find somebody. Because the person walking in here is saying, yeah, I'm going to walk into a job where they just, publicly fired the last guy, You're going to have someone with a lot of confidence and the ability to back up that confidence.
Looking towards something that you're really involved in right now, you've really gotten a heart, I guess, for ensuring clean water, ensuring the cleanliness of the Florida aquifer. Can you kind of tell me about what that means in real terms for locals in Freeport right now and what you're doing to fight for clean water and safe drinking water?
Well, we have to go back a little bit. So again, back in the 2006-10 timeframe, water was already a concern. Some of the southern wells for the Northwest Florida, our aquifer wells, were already being intruded by salt water. When you pull on that reservoir down there, the whole big aquifer, and the water, fresh water leaves, if there's nothing to replace it, salt water is nearby, it intrudes into the well. Those wells become unusable for drinking water. And when that happened, there was a group of folks that were very interested in making a reservoir up on the Rio River. It was on land owned by the Northwest Florida Water Management District. There was no cities there. There was no real major cultural, historic sites, things like that. And there was a real effort to try to get that going, and it just fell short. It never happened because people said, oh, there's environmental, there's this, there's that, there's not support, there's going to take money, you got to have a dam, dams are bad. And they went through the whole thing. But at some point, you're going to need another source of fresh water. The aquifer is not unlimited. So in the meantime, now we have our aquifer, and it's now been, 15 years later or more, and more people have gone to the area, more straws going down into that aquifer and the wellheads for the Santa Rosa, Okaloosa, Walton, counties, and Bay County. And it's a real concern. And nobody really knows where the tipping points are. But you have to know that the wells are not unlimited, and the aquifer, which runs, it's a huge area. It goes all the way from Mississippi, Alabama, all the way through northern Florida, up into southern Alabama, southern Georgia, all the way twisted into Carolina. But nobody knows exactly where it's going to run out or how many recharge time is not a day or a week or a year or 10 years. So, that aquifer was formed over thousands of years. So anything that could to potentially hit the aquifer is a concern. And one of the things I don't think people appreciate is the aquifers, it's all connected, right? And it all connected. And if you look at our area in the North Walton, northern Okaloosa, that area, everything flows. The aquifer flows down to the Gulf. And water goes downhill, and that's how the topography and the way it works. So anything going on anywhere in the areas, you have an issue, it could affect the wells, it could affect the other well fields, things like that. So we got involved with a redevelopment of an asphalt plant outside of Freeport, just to the west of Freeport. There was a plant there back in 2010, but hadn't been producing asphalt since then. It was dismantled sometime in the late 2010s, 17, 18, 19, somewhere that time. But 2010 was the last time we had asphalt, and it came back, and folks own the land and they want to do something with it. It's industrial. A company in Alabama said, hey, we'd like to start a new plant up. We have a plant here in Geneva and we'd like to bring one down. And we're like, wow, things really have changed since 2010. There's probably close to 8,000 to 9,000 people, probably 3,000 to 4,000 new homes, 60,000 or 6,000 1 mile radius, with another 1,000 to 2,000 being planned and platted along 20 and the Bay Loop and that whole area. So we got involved and said, there's maybe some other options. There's a real danger when you have an industrial site there. The Godwin Creek is right there. The Aliquot Slough is right there. Crawford Creek is right there. There's a significant amount of water open and flowing within close proximity. And It's also right next to a landfill that wasn't run very well. In fact, the people that owned it, called the Coyote Landfill, they just walked away from it and they let insurance pay for the remediation, which wasn't really, everyone will tell you the remediation was basically put dirt over it, grow some grass, and that was it. Never was really remediated. You got that whole area, and it's sitting right there next to the creeks and where the water flows, and that goes down to the bay. You already have stuff in the mid-county area. There's issues with the landfill up there. You got to have asphalt plants. You got to have landfills, but how you operate and where you locate them is really important. So we formed an organization. We felt like there was needed to have a specific focus. So protect the Emerald Coast Alliance, PECA, or the Alliance. And we've got a lot of volunteers, people that are really active in trying to do the research and the information that maybe the county staff doesn't have time to do. They've got a lot on their plate. They don't have that many folks. And when you have a vested interest, you tend to do a lot more research and can dig and pull the onion back, pull the layers back. So we're involved in those kind of issues, and the unifying factor is how things touch the water and the water supply, whether it flows to the bay and the Choctaw Bay and that whole area, or the aquifer, or the issues and possible contamination. And Commissioner Glidewell even said that there was a real threat to the wellheads based on how well the landfill up there was going to be modified or changed or different things. It's a complicated several issues. You have to have asphalt. You got to have landfills. Where you locate them is important. How you operate them, the safety factor, the intersection with the quality of life for people, property values, safety response, traffic. I mean, those all come into play. When there's 20,000 people in Walton County and it's 60 years ago, you could pretty much put things anywhere and it wasn't that much of a factor. But now our south end is built up pretty well. Now the middle of the county is growing terrifically at a rapid pace because people realize, hey, this is a pretty good place to live. The beaches are only 20 minutes away. But that kind of growth and the plan and how you do it and updating your plans and your future land use takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of skill, and it takes a lot of expertise, and it takes planning, and it takes public input. You're not going to get thousands of people coming to these meetings. I mean, I did the whole, for 4 years, and I'm thinking, golly, and I never, when I was flying 15s there at Eglin, I never had time or thought to go to a county commission meeting when they were talking about the future land use.
But there's so much fun, Jess.
I know it was fun. It was challenging, and it was great. We can talk about F-15 sometime, but that's why you trust the elected officials, and then the elected officials who hire good county staff. And one of the things that the first time when I ran and I got elected, I spent a lot of time with the county staff, and the people that don't really know will say, oh, I saw 4 guys and they were leaning on the shovel. Where, you know what? You don't know what they were doing. You don't know who was leading and who was doing what, whatever. And I found that the county staff's good people, working hard. They're not getting rich being on the county staff, but they should be well taken care of because they're taking care of our quality of life. And that costs money, and you need staff directors who are knowledgeable and can run a staff and promote the good people and nurture and bring along the next generation that they can grow folks to replace themselves. It takes a lot of work. And you'll hear people say, well, we should run the county like a business. Well, yes, okay, with one caveat. Most businesses are in place to make a profit. That's the thing. It's not profit with evil profit. It's good old American capitalism, worldwide capitalism. Profit is good. Can't make a profit. You have to run it like a business with the attributes of a well-run organization, but you don't have that profit motive. You have to have the profit motive is happy citizens, a well-planned area, being able to get to work, being able to start a new business, have a road, have a sewer, have the water, that kind of stuff. You always have to caveat that. We had a gentleman who always came every year to our budget hearings and said, you got to run it like a company. I have a company, and he was very successful. He truly was. But I always had the caveat, say, I can't run it as a profit. Can I make, can I put $100 million in the bank this year and keep my tax rates the same? No, people would go, that's not the right thing. So you got to use what you have. You got to use the resources you have. You got to plan properly. And that takes an orchestra and a director to help make that happen. And for our county, it's very important. And then the other side of that is the county has to work very closely with Freeport, with DeFuniak, with the neighborhoods in Santa Rosa, up north at Paxton. where the counties and the cities intersect, those interlocals, when they work well, nobody knows where the city ends and where the county begins. And when they don't work well, that's a challenge for the people, right? For the staff, for the county staff, city staff. So there's a lot to go into this, and the commissioners have their hands full. When you have issues like we had at the last June 10th meeting, you spent 2.5 hours on the whole deal. That takes away from the other positives that we need to be working on.
Well, Jazz Genazzo, thank you so much for your time today. Got a couple of articles coming from you, a couple of columns, just about different stuff, everything from flying planes to backing up trailers with boats on them. Good stuff coming from you. We're very excited to have you on board, and we appreciate your time today, sir.
Well, I appreciate the feedback and appreciate the way you're doing covering. We don't have anybody local covering like we used to. We have the DeFuniak paper up there. They do a pretty good job, but we need to have someone, covering all the different places and all the different aspects. So hopefully people are tuning in, and you're getting a lot of hits on the website and people joining up and subscribing.
All right. Well, on that note, don't forget to like and subscribe all of our stuff over there, out there in TV land that are watching. We'd love to have you on board. And if you have comments on this episode or anything else that we're doing, please leave them. It helps build engagement, even if they're mean and tough. I can take it. All right. That's all from us. Back to you guys in the studio, me and Paul.
Just want to let you guys know that today's show is brought to you by Steve Shutt and the folks at Movement Mortgage. Here's the thing. We all need mortgages at some point in our life, and Steve's a local. You definitely want to hire a local agent. It's the best way to get your offer accepted and to look like it's strong to the seller. And Steve and his team do an excellent job of getting you to the closing table, and they're there for you after the fact as well. So if you have a mortgage need, whether it's to buy a house or whether you want to take a HELOC out to cash some equity out of your house, I would recommend calling Steve Shutt at Movement Mortgage.
Welcome back, everybody, to Paul N Saul, and it is time for the community mailbag, Paul. It's my favorite part because we get to hear
my favorite part too
from the residents. And so the first one is kind of a community mailbag thing, I would say. It's the survey from this past Friday's newsletter that we send to you, which, by the way, you can sign up for. midbaynews.com/newsletter. You'll get all of the latest news and information from the Emerald Coast right to your inbox, and you don't have to kind of like scrum through the word of mouth chats. You're welcome.
Yeah, this was excellent. I was a little surprised by some of the responses. You want to run us through maybe like the top 3 or so, or top 4?
Yeah. So question this week was, which type of leadership do you trust most to improve your day-to-day life? Options were national politicians, local business owners, community organizations. I don't trust any of them. Students and young activists, state level officials, military leaders, and local elected officials. And coming in at number 1 was community organizations, which I wasn't like stunned by, but I was surprised by, if that makes sense. Because I guess if you like include churches, it makes a lot more sense to me.
Sure. Yeah, I think probably people thought about churches in that, the churches in our community are really strong and they do a lot for our community. So yeah, that makes sense. And the thing that came in number 2 didn't surprise me at all because some people are just curmudgeons. It says, I don't trust any of them at 20% response rates.
1 in 5. And okay, fair enough. And number 3 was a tie between local business owners and local elected officials. And again, that makes sense to me because 1, there's a lot of local elected officials that are also business owners. That kind of just goes hand in hand. But also, I mean, local elected officials are accountable and they're right in your face. You see them all the time. There's no hiding for them. And so if they do something that, isn't very good, there's a high likelihood that they're going to hear about it. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Kind of I don't want to say a short leash, but they're very immediately accountable in a way that the group that came in last place with a total of 0 votes, national politicians, is not.
I was happy to see that. I mean, they don't. I mean, if you're going to spend your time and energy, it's much better spent on reading Mid-Bay News than it is anything related to national politics.
You're not going to stop the bunker busters, y'all.
No.
You can, however, stop replatting and zoning. So, I
True.
mean, not for nothing. It could be a lot of fun. Speaking on your Niceville hat.
My Niceville hat that I wore a few weeks ago.
Indeed. Somebody said a city of evil hat would be so tough. And I think they're right. Because like if you got like City of Evil, man, I'd buy that.
Well, I think it was Crestview. I don't know how long they've been doing it, but I did notice it last year that when they came to play us, they had t-shirts on and they definitely had the EVIL highlighted in Niceville.
How do we not lean into that? That's like the greatest thing ever.
Probably should. There might have been a practical joke at some point too, like where the certain lights in the Niceville sign were taken out so that evil shone through. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big proponent on evil things, but
like for one football game, it's hilarious. To make it our whole persona, maybe not so much.
Yeah, probably not.
So next big thing was the $30 million that the PGA wants us to spend here on the Emerald Coast for the pleasure of their company over the next 5 years. I would say the comments were relatively negative. Somebody said, big no. I worked the senior tour events there. Low crowd, terrible parking. Even back then, nightmare now. Parking's a huge issue, especially when it comes to literally anything in Destin, even in the shoulder season at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be really cool to have something like that here, just to kind of bring up the Q factor of the area. I think it would be really good for tourism and that type of thing. But I mean, the commenter is absolutely right. It's a crazy thing to have happen to you for a week. It will upend everything within, miles around it.
And a second comment said, if this is a winning business idea, then the companies will profit directly. Who would profit directly will be happy to pay for the event. Even if the company begging for the money doesn't think this event will turn a profit, this is corporate welfare. And I mean, not for nothing, but I understand it. I definitely get why, especially for a $6 million price tag. But the counterfactual is the Myrtle Beach PGA event. They've made a lot of money off of that. The counterfactual is that Myrtle Beach is a golf community, but we have golf courses everywhere, right? Are we not a golf community? Does that not count?
I don't know. I think this would have been really cool to do about 10 to 20 years ago. I do think golf is a bit on the decline, but it doesn't sound like it's going to happen. So I don't think it's anything important moving forward.
Right on. Well, quick recap of the stuff that we're covering, or we've covered so far in the week. Closed door meeting, or not closed door, but a closed vote meeting in Val P. We did a records request. You can find out how they voted on their new city commissioner on our website. Playoff shakeup coming to the FHSAA, so high school football. Firehouse on the Fed's dime. We here in the city of Niceville are applying for a grant for 4.2 million buckaroos to have a fire station just paid for, which is pretty cool considering that the city's budget is like $60 million. So that's like 8% of our total revenues in a year. And then finally, that false alarm in Niceville over a kidnapping, just covering that. And then as we move into the near future, we got a lot of city council meetings this week. Everybody from Walton Beach to Walton County and Crestview, they're all meeting this week. And Mid-Bay News reporter Colin Bester is going to be all over those stories this week. So stay tuned on our website, midbaynews.com. And if you haven't yet, sign up for our newsletter, midbaynews.com/newsletter. You can actually tailor some of the content there so that you can get general news, you can get sports, you can get all that kind of stuff to make sure that you get the stuff that you want. But that's what we have for this week. So Paul, why don't you hit them with our now famous moniker?
I'm not sure how famous it is, but we'll do it. We'll do it right now. Be nice, Niceville, not evil.
Not evil. That's right. You heard the man.